No one believed a human could rule, until the princess proved them wrong. The Council of Velisar, the ruling body of the Galactic Empire, had gathered as usual to discuss matters of law, commerce, and security. Arya had attended many such meetings over the years, but this one felt different. The air was thick with tension, whispers circling like predatory birds. She knew the reason. Her father, the Emperor, had passed unexpectedly, and the question of succession hung in the air like a storm cloud. For centuries, humans had been seen as outsiders in the Empire. They were few in number, scattered across distant planets, and their reputation among the alien races was one of fragility. They were emotional, impulsive, and most damning, short-lived compared to the long-lived alien species that made up the Council. Arya, despite being a human, had grown up among them. She knew their ways, their rules, and their prejudices. Yet no amount of understanding could protect her from the doubters. The Council members exchanged glances, some barely hiding their disdain. One of them, a tall being with iridescent scales that shimmered in the hall's light, leaned forward. "It is remarkable, isn't it?" he said, voice dripping with condescension. "A human sitting in a place of power. Tell me, Princess Arya, do you truly believe you are capable of leading this empire?" Arya's eyes met his without fear. She had expected this question. She had rehearsed her answer countless times, even if she never spoke it aloud. She did not need their approval. She only needed a chance to show them. "My father taught me many things," she said calmly. "Leadership is not measured by species or age. It is measured by decisions and actions." The Council murmured among themselves, some scoffing at her words, but Arya did not flinch. She knew their laughter hid fear, the kind that only comes when something challenges centuries of assumption. After the initial exchange, the Council moved to formal proceedings. A vote to select the new ruler would take place, but Arya knew she had already been written off. The Council had no intention of considering a human as a legitimate leader. The other candidates were alien nobles with long histories, families entrenched in power, and alliances that stretched across the stars. They would win easily, or so the Council thought. When the formal meeting ended, Arya lingered in the hall. She walked past the towering pillars, her boots echoing softly on the polished floor. She did not retreat to the private chambers where comfort awaited. Instead, she went to the library, a place few humans ever visited and fewer aliens respected. The library was vast, a maze of towering shelves filled with ancient scrolls, digital archives, and star maps. Here, knowledge was power, and Arya intended to wield it. She began her research by studying the Empire's past leaders. Some had ruled with wisdom, others with cruelty. But a pattern emerged. The most respected rulers were those who combined intelligence with courage, fairness with decisiveness. They did not rely on fear or intimidation alone. They inspired loyalty. Arya realized that while she lacked the centuries of experience many council members had, she possessed something equally valuable: human adaptability. Humans could think quickly, act boldly, and improvise when rules failed. She would use that. As the hours passed, she uncovered strategic weaknesses in the Empire. Certain outlying colonies were vulnerable to pirate raids. Some trading routes were poorly protected. The Council had grown complacent, assuming the galaxy would bend to its will because of age-old treaties and alliances. Arya saw the danger clearly. If she did not act soon, the Empire could fracture before she even had a chance to claim her place. Her thoughts were interrupted by a soft voice behind her. "Princess Arya?" The voice belonged to Selrin, the exiled strategist she had secretly befriended. Selrin had once served on the Council, his brilliance in military planning unmatched, but he had been cast out for questioning corrupt practices. "You should not be here," Arya said, though her tone was more amused than angry. "They will report you if they see you." Selrin smiled faintly. "Let them. I did not come for approval. I came because I know what you are capable of, and you are capable of more than any of them think." Arya's heart lifted. She had found allies before, but none as valuable as Selrin. His knowledge of the Council's inner workings, combined with her understanding of human ingenuity, could tip the balance. "Then you will help me," she said simply. "You and anyone else willing to see beyond their prejudices." Over the following days, Arya gathered a small circle of trusted supporters. There was Kale, the rogue starship captain who had saved entire colonies from pirates. Leora, an alien diplomat whose loyalty was not to species but to fairness. and several human volunteers who, like her, had been dismissed by the council. Together, they formed a quiet network, sharing information, planning strategies, and preparing for the moment when the council would have to face the consequences of underestimating a human. Meanwhile, rumors began to swirl across the empire. Whispers of a human princess who might defy expectations reached every colony, every council chamber, and every trading post. Some laughed at the idea, others scoffed, and a few dared to hope. Hope, Arya realized, was as powerful a tool as any weapon. If she could inspire even a fraction of the empire to believe in her, she could change the tide. One evening, as the twin suns set over the capital, Arya stood on the balcony of her chambers, looking out at the glittering sprawl of the city below. Ships of every shape and size moved along the orbital lanes, carrying goods, messages, and passengers across vast distances. She imagined herself among them, not as a passenger, but as a leader directing the course of the empire. Her thoughts were interrupted by a soft chime. It was a message from Leora, delivered through secure channels. The council had scheduled a public debate to discuss the empire's future. They intended it as a spectacle, a way to humiliate her and cement their narrative that humans could not lead. Arya smiled, though it was a small, quiet smile. This was the moment she had been preparing for. It was not just about words or speeches. It was about action, strategy, and showing the council that she could not be ignored. On the day of the debate, the grand auditorium was filled with council members, nobles, journalists, and citizens from across the empire. The air buzzed with anticipation. When Arya stepped onto the stage, she felt the weight of centuries of prejudice pressing against her shoulders. But she did not waver. The council began with questions meant to trap her, to highlight what they saw as human weaknesses. They asked about her experience, her judgment, her ability to handle crises. Each question was designed to provoke doubt, to elicit hesitation. Arya answered calmly, drawing on her knowledge, her observations, and her plans. She spoke of the colonies at risk, the need for reform, and the potential of humans to contribute more than the council believed. She spoke not with arrogance, but with clarity and conviction. The audience listened, some skeptically, others with growing curiosity. Selryn and her team watched from the wings, their expressions taut with tension. They knew that words alone would not be enough. The council expected her to falter, but Arya had prepared for every angle. She had anticipated their attacks, and her human ability to adapt in real time became her greatest weapon. By the end of the debate, a silence fell over the auditorium. It was not the silence of defeat, but the silence of shock. Arya had not just survived the council's scrutiny. She had exposed their complacency and incompetence. Even those who despised humans could not deny the clarity of her vision, the courage in her words, and the determination in her eyes. As the audience filed out, whispers followed her like shadows. Some questioned whether a human could lead, but others began to see the possibility. Arya knew the council would regroup, would plot, and would challenge her at every turn. But she also knew that she had taken the first step, the first of many victories. That night, in the quiet of her chambers, Arya allowed herself a small moment of reflection. She had faced doubt, prejudice, and scorn, and she had prevailed. But the path ahead was long, filled with trials that would test every ounce of her resolve. She would need strategy, courage, and allies who believed as fiercely as she did. Looking out at the stars, she made a silent promise. She would prove that humans were not only capable of leadership, they could excel where others failed. The galaxy would remember her name, not as a human outsider, but as a ruler who defied expectations and shaped the future of the empire. And so, Princess Arya began the journey that would change the fate of the Velisar Empire, one calculated step at a time. The council might not believe in her now, but soon, the entire galaxy would witness what humans were truly capable of. The morning after the debate, the capital was alive with murmurs and speculation. Citizens spoke in hushed tones about the human princess who had dared to challenge the council openly. Some were curious, some skeptical, and some secretly hopeful. News of Arya's performance had spread faster than anyone expected, carried by travelers, ships, and interstellar broadcasts. But not everyone was pleased. The council members, humiliated by her display, gathered in their private chambers, faces dark with anger and frustration. "This is unacceptable," said the tallest of them, his iridescent scales glinting in the light. A human has embarrassed us all in front of the Empire. How can we allow this to continue? Remove her from the succession vote, another suggested, voice sharp and cold. The people will never accept a human ruler. It is our duty to preserve the stability of the Empire. But the eldest counselor shook his head. We cannot. She has gained support, and public opinion cannot be ignored. Any attempt to suppress her will only create rebellion. We must find another way to stop her. Meanwhile, Arya did not wait for the council to act. She had seen the cracks in the Empire and knew that words alone would not secure her position. Action was required, and the moment had come. Intelligence reports indicated that the colony of Nyrath Prime, located on the outer edge of the Empire, was under attack. Pirates had seized control of the main city, cutting off communications and threatening the citizens. The council saw this as a minor skirmish beneath their attention, but Arya saw opportunity. She proposed a mission to reclaim the colony, arguing that it was a test of leadership that the council could not ignore. Their reaction was a mixture of disbelief and amusement. A human leading an offensive mission? Surely they thought she would fail, and the council's superiority would be reinforced. Arya assembled her team. Selryn, the exiled strategist, was her second in command. Kale, the starship captain, brought his skilled crew and fast ships capable of navigating pirate-controlled space. Leora, the diplomat, provided connections with local factions and knowledge of Nyrath Prime's defenses. Together, they planned with meticulous detail, blending human creativity with alien technology, finding solutions the council had overlooked. When the fleet entered Nyrath Prime's orbit, the city below was in chaos. Fires burned across districts, and small skirmishes erupted between pirates and local defenders. The pirates were confident. They had defeated the colony's guards with ease. But they had not accounted for a leader willing to think differently, to act in ways no one expected. Arya moved quickly, studying maps of the city and analyzing the pirates' movements. She did not rely on brute force alone. Instead, she devised a plan to divide the pirate forces, cut off their supply lines, and reclaim key locations before the enemy could respond. She coordinated with Kale to launch small, precise attacks using the starships, advanced maneuverability. At the same time, Leora and Selryn worked to rally the frightened citizens, training them to defend their homes and communicate critical information. The first night of the mission was tense. Explosions lit the skies, starships weaved between buildings, and sounds of conflict echoed across the city. Arya directed every move, staying calm even when unexpected complications arose. A pirate ambush threatened the main supply depot, but she adapted instantly, redirecting reinforcements and using the city's narrow streets to trap the attackers. Her human intuition, the ability to improvise, gave her an edge that the council's rigid strategies could not match. By the second day, the tide began to turn. Pirates who had once dominated the streets found themselves isolated, their communications disrupted, and their reinforcements cut off. Arya personally led a small squad to secure the city's central communication tower, a daring mission that others had deemed too dangerous. The squad moved swiftly, using cover and speed, and neutralized the pirates guarding the tower. Once the tower was back online, citizens sent messages across the Empire, broadcasting their success and reinforcing Arya's growing reputation. The council in the capital watched with disbelief. Reports arrived in real time, showing that a human had not only survived the mission but had outsmarted and outmaneuvered the pirates. Some council members could not hide their shock, others tried to spin the events as luck. But the facts were undeniable. Arya was proving herself capable in ways no alien leader had ever managed. As the final pockets of resistance fell, Arya addressed the citizens of Nyrath Prime. Her words were simple but filled with conviction. She promised to rebuild the city, to protect the citizens, and to lead the Empire in a way that valued courage, intelligence, and fairness over prejudice. The people listened, inspired not only by her victory but by her confidence and humanity. They cheered her as a hero, and word of her success spread like wildfire. Even so, victory did not bring Arya peace. She knew the council would retaliate. They had been humiliated, and pride and fear drove them to find new ways to challenge her. Reports arrived of secret meetings, of alien nobles plotting to discredit her and reclaim control. Arya understood that winning battles was not enough. She would need strategy, alliances, and foresight to survive the coming political storms. Back on the capital's main planet, Arya's team met to review the mission. Selrin analyzed the patterns of pirate activity, pointing out ways the Council's assumptions had blinded them. The pirates succeeded for so long because the Council underestimated human creativity, he said. They planned for predictable strategies, not someone willing to act differently to adapt in the moment. That is our advantage. Kale nodded. And it is exactly what we will need for what comes next. The Council will strike, no doubt. We must be ready not just for open confrontation, but for manipulation, sabotage, and deception. Arya listened, absorbing every detail. She was not arrogant. She knew that victory against pirates was only the first step. The real challenge lay in navigating the Empire's politics, where rules were as deadly as any weapon. Yet, for the first time, she felt a surge of confidence. Humans could not only survive in this alien world, they could excel if given the chance. In the days that followed, Arya began traveling to neighboring colonies. She met with leaders, citizens, and local militias, learning their strengths and weaknesses. She adapted her approach for each planet, recognizing that no single strategy would work across the Empire. Her team marveled at her ability to think on her feet, to integrate new information, and to inspire loyalty wherever she went. Human flexibility and resilience were proving to be invaluable tools. The Council, meanwhile, struggled to regain their authority. Attempts to undermine her mission publicly failed as news from Nyrath Prime and other colonies painted a different picture. A competent, courageous, and fair leader who cared for the people and acted decisively. Some council members began to fear that the very empire they sought to control might slip from their grasp, not because of alien rebellion, but because of a human's rise. One evening, while reviewing reports in her private chambers, Arya received a message from the leader of a distant colony. "We have seen your actions," the message read. "If you are willing to lead, we will stand with you." Arya felt a deep sense of satisfaction. This was more than a victory over pirates or skepticism. It was a recognition that humans could lead, could inspire, and could unite even those who once doubted them. But even as she celebrated small victories, Arya remained vigilant. She knew the Council would not give up easily. They had influence, resources, and long memories. Her next steps had to be calculated, her strategies precise. She began planning a Council summit, proposing new regulations and reforms designed to strengthen the Empire while also proving her leadership. This summit would be her next test, and she intended to face it with the same courage and intelligence that had won the outer colonies. Arya's confidence grew not from arrogance, but from experience. Every challenge she faced, every risk she took, added to her understanding of leadership. She began to see the Empire as a living organism, one that could thrive if guided wisely, but collapse if driven by prejudice and fear. Humans, she realized, had a unique strength in seeing possibilities that others dismissed. Their creativity, adaptability, and courage were exactly what the Empire needed. As night fell over the capital, Arya stood on the balcony of her chambers once again, looking at the stars. Ships moved across the sky, carrying goods, travelers, and messages. Somewhere out there, pirates had been defeated, colonies were rebuilding, and citizens were beginning to believe in something new. She whispered to herself, "This is only the beginning." The galaxy was watching, and Arya intended to show them that humans were not weak, not incapable, not outsiders. They were leaders, innovators, and heroes in their own right. And she, Princess Arya, would prove it to every corner of the Empire, one daring step at a time. In the coming days, the Council would attempt to challenge her, testing her resolve, her strategy, and her ability to inspire loyalty. But Arya was ready. With her team at her side, allies among the colonies, and the courage that humans carried like a flame, she would not only survive, she would thrive. And in doing so, she would prove that sometimes the most underestimated species could achieve the most extraordinary feats. The Empire was changing, slowly but surely, and at its heart was a human princess who refused to be ignored. The Council had thought her fragile, incapable, and weak. They had been wrong. And soon the entire galaxy would see the truth. The Council had not forgotten the embarrassment of Nyrath Prime. Their defeat was a wound to their pride, and they were determined to strike back. Meetings were held in secret chambers, hidden from the eyes of the Empire. Alien nobles whispered strategies, debated schemes, and plotted ways to discredit the human princess who had dared to outshine them. Their methods were subtle: political pressure, false reports, and manipulations designed to make Arya appear reckless. But Arya had already anticipated resistance. She had learned that the Council did not respect humans because they feared them, and fear, she knew, could be turned into opportunity. While the Council plotted, she focused on strengthening her alliances. Colonies that had once been neglected now looked to her for leadership, and she provided guidance, resources, and reassurance. Her presence inspired confidence, and slowly her influence grew. The Council's first move was subtle. False reports of unrest spread across the empire. Some colonies claimed mismanagement, others alleged that Arya's leadership endangered citizens. The Council expected panic and rebellion, but Arya remained calm. She called her team together and reviewed the reports. Each one contained inconsistencies, mistakes, or exaggerations. It was clear that the Council's plan relied on fear and deception rather than reality. Selryn, ever sharp, analyzed the data. "They are trying to manipulate perception, not facts," he said. "They want the Empire to doubt you, to question your decisions. But we can counter this by showing the truth. Transparency will be our weapon," Arya nodded. "Then we show the Empire what is really happening. We cannot argue with lies, they will twist them anyway. We must act, and we must act boldly." Her plan was daring. She decided to visit the most critical colonies personally, demonstrating her leadership, addressing concerns, and repairing trust. She moved quickly, traveling between planets on Kale's fast starships. Each stop was carefully planned. She observed conditions firsthand, coordinated with local leaders, and inspired citizens with her courage and clarity. Meanwhile, the Council escalated their tactics. They sent fleets to intimidate neutral colonies, hoping to provoke fear and make Arya appear powerless. But they underestimated her ingenuity. Using knowledge gathered from previous missions, she coordinated with her allies to divert hostile fleets, employ stealth maneuvers, and use human unpredictability to her advantage. In every confrontation, she adapted faster than the Council anticipated, turning threats into opportunities to strengthen her position. One particularly tense moment came when a strategically important colony on the edge of the Empire, Vorelles, reported an incoming mercenary fleet hired by the Council to suppress support for Arya. The fleet was large, well-armed, and expected to strike quickly. Most leaders would have panicked, but Arya saw a way to turn the situation to her favor. She led a small strike team to disable the fleet's communications while simultaneously rallying local defenses. The operation required precise timing. Kale's pilots executed daring maneuvers to distract the mercenaries, while Arya's squad moved through the fleet's weak points. Selryn monitored strategy from the control room, offering guidance. Arya's human ability to improvise under pressure became the key to success. When a sudden explosion threatened their plan, she adjusted instantly, finding a new path to neutralize the enemy. By the end of the day, the fleet was forced to retreat, humiliated once again by the very human they had hoped to defeat. News of the victory at Vorelles spread quickly. Colonies that had been hesitant now openly supported Arya, and even some council members began to question their alliances. The human princess, once underestimated, was proving that courage, intelligence, and adaptability could overcome prejudice and superior numbers. But the council was not finished. Frustration turned to desperation, and desperation led to riskier measures. They orchestrated a political scandal, accusing Arya of misusing resources and endangering lives during the Vorelles operation. Their aim was to turn public opinion against her, to weaken her growing influence. Arya faced the accusations head-on. She held a public hearing, inviting council members, colony leaders, and citizens to witness the evidence. Documents, communications, and reports were presented, showing that every action she took had been calculated, measured, and aimed at saving lives. Her clarity, honesty, and calm demeanor impressed the audience. She addressed each accusation not with anger, but with facts, logic, and compassion. During the hearing, a group of alien nobles attempted to provoke her, questioning her judgment and mocking her human traits. But Arya remained composed. She demonstrated her reasoning with precision, explaining the risks, the alternatives, and the outcomes. Her ability to turn challenges into teaching moments inspired confidence and admiration. By the end of the session, public opinion had shifted further in her favor. The council's attempts to discredit her had failed. Even so, the council continued plotting. They understood that force and deception alone could not defeat Arya. They needed a combination of manipulation and betrayal. Spies were sent to infiltrate her team, hoping to sow distrust and gather information for future attacks. Arya, aware of the possibility, remained vigilant. She established secure communication channels, carefully monitored activity, and taught her allies to trust one another while remaining cautious. During this period, Arya also began to implement reforms to strengthen her position. She improved communication networks between colonies, created rapid response teams for emergencies, and established training programs to empower citizens to protect themselves. These actions not only increased security, but also demonstrated her competence and care for the Empire. Citizens across the galaxy began to see a new kind of leadership, one that valued fairness, intelligence, and courage over tradition and prejudice. The turning point came during a council summit held on the capital planet. Arya was invited, though the council intended it as a trap. Their plan was to present new accusations, stage conflicts, and portray her as reckless and unfit. Arya prepared carefully, anticipating every move. She arrived not with defiance but with confidence, ready to show the Empire her vision for the future. The summit was tense. Council members took turns questioning her, trying to highlight weaknesses and provoke mistakes. But Arya responded with clarity and composure. She outlined her achievements, demonstrated the effectiveness of her strategies, and presented a bold plan to unify the Empire while ensuring safety and stability. Her words resonated with colony leaders and citizens observing the proceedings. Even some council members, initially hostile, could not ignore the evidence of her competence. Midway through the summit, a crisis erupted. An explosion in one of the city's sectors threatened to derail the meeting and create chaos. Many expected Arya to panic or falter. Instead, she acted instantly. Coordinating with Kale, Selrin, and local security forces, she directed emergency response teams, evacuated civilians, and neutralized the threat. Her quick thinking and ability to adapt in real time saved lives and prevented disaster. The council was stunned. Their plan to discredit her had backfired spectacularly. A human princess, they realized, had not only survived their manipulations, but had excelled in a crisis that would have humbled even the most experienced alien leaders. Public support for Arya surged, and whispers of rebellion against the council's authority began to grow. After the summit, Arya retreated with her team to review the day's events. Selrin spoke first. "You've done something remarkable. Not just in victory, but in showing the Empire that humans can lead. The Council underestimated you at every turn, and every time you adapted and overcame. That is why people are beginning to believe in you." Arya smiled faintly. "It is not about me," she said. "It is about what humans can do. Our strength lies in creativity, courage, and the ability to adapt. The Council has rules, traditions, and expectations, but we have flexibility and determination. That is why we succeed." Kale leaned back, exhaustion evident in his posture. "And yet the Council will keep coming. They will not give up until they see us defeated or eliminated. We must be ready for anything." Arya nodded. She had expected this. The road ahead would be dangerous, filled with political intrigue, sabotage, and possibly open conflict. But she had also learned something vital. Humans were not weak, and the Empire underestimated them at their peril. With strategy, allies, and courage, they could overcome even the most entrenched opposition. In the days that followed, Arya continued her efforts to strengthen the Empire. She traveled to distant colonies, met with citizens, and coordinated with leaders to implement reforms. Her actions inspired loyalty and admiration, reinforcing the growing belief that a human could not only rule but excel. The Council, increasingly frustrated, attempted one final measure. They conspired to isolate Arya from her allies, hoping to create conflict within her team. But by now, Arya's leadership had created trust and cohesion among her supporters. They communicated openly, shared information, and remained vigilant. The Council's attempts at division failed, further demonstrating that human ingenuity and cooperation could withstand even the most cunning plots. By the end of this period, Arya had not only survived the Council's attacks, but had emerged stronger and more respected. Her reputation spread across the galaxy. The human princess who had defied expectations, outsmarted her enemies, and proven that courage, intelligence, and adaptability were traits that transcended species. Standing once again on the balcony of her chambers, looking at the stars above the capital, Arya felt a sense of determination. The council would continue to challenge her, and dangers would continue to arise. But the Empire was beginning to see a new reality. Humans could lead, and when they did, they could inspire loyalty, achieve the impossible, and change the course of history. Arya whispered to herself, "They thought we were weak. They thought we were outsiders. They were wrong. And we will show them just how wrong they were." The Empire was no longer the same. The Council had underestimated her, but the galaxy was beginning to understand. The human princess was not just a figurehead. She was a leader, a strategist, and a symbol of what was possible when determination met opportunity. And with each challenge, each victory, Arya moved closer to proving that humans were not only capable of ruling, they could excel where others faltered. The Council's strikes had failed. Their manipulations had backfired. And the galaxy had begun to see the truth. Sometimes the underestimated, the overlooked, and the dismissed could rise higher than anyone imagined. Princess Arya had survived, adapted, and thrived. And the Empire was watching, waiting to see what she would do next. The Council had grown desperate. Their repeated attempts to discredit the human princess had failed, leaving them exposed and powerless. Yet they were not ready to concede. Some clung stubbornly to tradition, insisting that no human could truly lead the Empire. Others, fearful of losing influence, plotted last-ditch schemes to regain control. The palace buzzed with tension as Arya prepared for the Council's final challenge, a gathering that would determine the future of the Empire. Arya spent the morning reviewing reports from the outer colonies. Trade routes were secure, supply chains had been strengthened, and communication networks connected even the most distant worlds. Citizens across the galaxy had come to see her as more than a princess. They saw a leader who acted with courage, intelligence, and fairness. Yet she knew appearances could deceive. The Council could still orchestrate a crisis, manipulate facts, or turn allies against her. Selrin approached her with a stack of documents. "We've identified potential vulnerabilities," he said, voice measured. "The Council may try a coordinated strike, political, economic, even military. We need to be prepared for everything." Arya nodded. "Then we prepare, not with fear but with action. They will see that humans do not break under pressure. We will meet their attacks with strategy, ingenuity, and determination." Kale entered, his starship uniform crisp and orderly. "Our fleets are ready. Every route is monitored. Any movement the Council attempts will be seen before it happens. And if it comes to battle, we will respond with precision." Arya smiled faintly. "Good. Then let us move forward. Today we shape the future." The Council's meeting was called for the mid-afternoon in the Grand Hall of the Capitol Palace. Delegates, colony leaders, and citizens from across the Empire gathered to witness the proceedings. The Council expected chaos, hoping to force Arya into mistakes that could be used against her. Instead, they were met with calm confidence. When the session began, Council members launched their accusations. They questioned Arya's decisions, her alliances, and her reforms. They demanded proof that her leadership was effective and sustainable, but Arya did not falter. She presented detailed reports, evidence of successful missions, and statements from colony leaders praising her guidance. Every point she made was clear, factual, and impossible to dispute. As she spoke, she noticed subtle signs of panic among some council members. Their carefully constructed narratives were crumbling under the weight of reality. Citizens in the audience began to murmur approval, and even some alien leaders whispered their support. Arya's calm, logical approach contrasted sharply with the Council's panic and frustration. Then a sudden alert arrived. A nearby colony reported a sabotage attempt on a major resource hub, orchestrated by mercenaries hired by the Council. Many would have panicked, but Arya saw this as an opportunity. She quickly assembled her team, analyzed the situation, and coordinated a response that combined diplomacy, strategic placement of forces, and human ingenuity. While Kale directed defensive ships, Arya led a small strike team to secure the hub and prevent critical damage. Selrin coordinated intelligence and communications, ensuring that every move was anticipated. Citizens of the colony, inspired by her previous actions, volunteered to assist, following her instructions with precision. Within hours, the sabotage was neutralized, lives were saved, and the resource hub remained intact. When news of the successful response reached the Grand Hall, a wave of awe swept through the delegates and citizens. Arya had not only defended the Empire from the Council's covert attack, but had done so with transparency and efficiency that no alien leader could match. The audience erupted in applause, and whispers of support became confident declarations. Humans could lead and they could excel. The Council members grew frantic. Their attacks had failed, their schemes had backfired, and their influence was slipping. Some attempted to speak, to argue, to manipulate the session once more, but Arya anticipated every move. She addressed each objection calmly, with evidence, reasoning, and vision. Her ability to remain composed under pressure, combined with human creativity and adaptability, proved irresistible. Finally, Arya presented her vision for the Empire's future. She outlined reforms to strengthen governance, enhance communication, and integrate the diverse species of the galaxy into a cooperative framework. She emphasized fairness, innovation, and respect for all citizens, human or alien. Her words were not just political statements. They were a promise of a new era, one in which the strengths of every species could contribute to a thriving, unified empire. The audience responded with overwhelming support. Delegates stood in approval, citizens cheered, and even some council members, realizing the futility of opposition, began to nod in agreement. The human princess, once dismissed and underestimated, had proven her worth beyond any doubt. The council, finally defeated, had no choice but to acknowledge her leadership. Their authority was diminished and their influence waned. Arya did not seek revenge. Instead, she offered them an opportunity to serve the Empire in meaningful ways, to contribute their knowledge and experience under her guidance. Some accepted willingly, recognizing the wisdom in unity. Others resisted, but had little power to oppose the will of the Empire. With the Council's defeat, Arya moved quickly to implement her reforms. Trade routes were expanded and secured, communication networks connected the most distant colonies, and defensive systems were enhanced. She established councils at local and regional levels, allowing citizens to participate in governance while maintaining strong central leadership. Her approach combined human ingenuity with the Empire's long-standing traditions, creating a balance that inspired confidence and loyalty. In the months that followed, Arya continued to travel across the galaxy. She visited colonies, met with citizens, and encouraged cooperation between species. Her presence was both reassuring and inspiring. Colonies that had once been skeptical now looked to her for guidance, and her reputation spread far beyond the capital. Stories of her courage, intelligence, and fairness reached even the most remote worlds. Arya's team worked tirelessly alongside her. Selrin continued to provide strategic counsel, Kale maintained the fleets and logistical operations, and Leora strengthened diplomatic ties. Together, they formed a network of leadership that combined human creativity with alien experience. Each success reinforced the belief that humans were capable, not just of leadership, but of excellence in every aspect of governance and strategy. One day, while visiting a colony recovering from a natural disaster, Arya witnessed the resilience of ordinary citizens. Families rebuilt homes, children returned to school, and local leaders organized resources with efficiency and determination. Arya realized that leadership was not just about victories in battle or political maneuvering. It was about empowering people, giving them the tools to thrive, and showing them that even in the darkest times, hope could endure. She spoke to the gathered citizens, her voice calm but filled with conviction. "You are the heart of this empire," she said. "Your courage, your creativity, and your dedication make this galaxy strong. We lead not for power, but for each other. Together, we can build a future where every species, every citizen, and every world can flourish." The crowd erupted in applause. For the first time, Arya felt a profound sense of fulfillment. She had not only survived the Council's challenges, but she had also created a new path forward for the Empire, one that valued strength, fairness, and collaboration. Humans, once underestimated and dismissed, were now recognized as capable leaders, innovators, and protectors of the galaxy. Back at the capital, Arya reflected on the journey that had brought her here. From the initial doubts and prejudice of the Council to the victories at Nyrath Prime and Vorellis, And finally, the triumph at the council summit. She had faced challenges that tested every aspect of her character. She had relied on human ingenuity, adaptability, and courage, and each step had reinforced the belief that humans were capable of achieving greatness. The empire itself had changed. The citizens now understood that leadership was not defined by species or tradition alone, but by vision, courage, and the ability to act decisively in the face of adversity. Arya's example inspired humans and aliens alike, showing that cooperation and mutual respect could overcome prejudice and fear. As night fell over the capital, Arya stood on the balcony of her chambers, looking at the stars that stretched endlessly across the galaxy. Ships moved along their orbital paths, colonies thrived, and the Empire was united in ways it had never been before. She felt the weight of responsibility, but also the exhilaration of possibility. The future was hers to shape, and she intended to do so with wisdom, courage, and the human spirit that had carried her this far. Selryn joined her quietly. "You have done more than anyone imagined," he said. "The Empire has seen what humans are capable of. They will remember this era for generations." Arya nodded, her eyes fixed on the distant horizon. "It is not about what I have done alone," she replied. "It is about what we can achieve together, humans and aliens, citizens and leaders working as one." That is the true strength of the Empire. Kale appeared behind them, a rare smile on his face. "And if anyone doubts that again," he said, "they will see firsthand how capable humans can be." Arya smiled, feeling a surge of determination. The council had been defeated, colonies were thriving, and the galaxy was beginning to understand the power of human ingenuity and courage. She knew challenges would continue to arise, but she also knew that humans had proven themselves capable of rising to any occasion. In the months that followed, Arya continued to lead with wisdom and fairness. New programs were established to encourage innovation, education, and collaboration across species. Citizens were given a voice in governance, and human-led initiatives became models for other sectors of the Empire. Arya's approach combined decisiveness with empathy, strategy with adaptability, and tradition with innovation. The council, once a source of obstruction, gradually transformed. Some members embraced the new era, contributing their knowledge and experience to support the Empire's growth. Others resisted but had little influence. The Empire had changed, and there was no turning back. Arya stood once again on the balcony of her chambers, looking at the stars and imagining the worlds beyond. The galaxy was vast, filled with challenges, opportunities, and mysteries. Yet for the first time, she felt truly confident that the human spirit, curious, adaptable, courageous, could thrive anywhere. The Empire had witnessed what humans could achieve, and the universe would remember her as the ruler who defied expectation, overcame prejudice, and united a galaxy. She whispered softly to herself, "We were underestimated, we were dismissed. And yet we have shown what humans can do. The galaxy will never forget." Princess Arya had not only survived the Council's attacks, she had thrived. She had proven that humans were capable of leadership, innovation, and heroism. The Empire was stronger, more united, and more hopeful than ever before. And as she looked to the stars, she knew that this was only the beginning of a new era, a human-led era of courage, creativity, and excellence that would shape the galaxy for generations to come. No one believed a human could rule, until the princess proved them wrong.